What it is, what it do. Welcome to Fresh Take the Rundown. Joshua Adamley, I'm with the talented, sexy, dangerous Devoneer. It's Devon Seal.
So crisp and clean.
We are on StreamYard as a new era of Fresh Take is upon us.
Yeah, the previous 10 years were just practice.
They were just practice. Zoom is maybe one or two more pods with Zoom coming up here in the foreseeable future, but as I just dropped, some of you will see the video on our Fresh Take Instagram account. The future of Fresh Take, like I said, it hit a little bit of bump in the on the road. Tires got to get changed, but we'll be back on pretty fast here. Just for those that haven't seen the video and just don't check out social media, that's cool. I appreciate you just checking in on that FTN. But now you can watch us here live on StreamYard going forward. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff. I'll get into that about the future of Fresh Take before we get going, which is, Devin, I say one of the more exciting weeks of great TV again. We've just been on a roll for solid television, but more or less, the domain that we had, they upped the rent, and we don't agree with it. So we're moving on to a cheaper home that give us much better amenities.
Well, they're totally entitled to do that kind of thing.
Yes, they are.
Whether or not we feel like paying that much is a different story.
Yeah.
That's all.
So we as it goes on, like I said in the video, about June 1st is tentative when we'll be launching the new audio side, but going forward, the Zoom our Zoom subscription ends on the 29th of May. So there will be no more Zoom. I would say pretty much every single Fresh Take going forward now will be live. And
Wow.
when we upgrade to StreamYard, you'll be able to find it live on StreamYard here, on one of Twitch, YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook. We'll discuss what the social media profiles that are most valuable for us are. We will be really trying to grow that Twitch this summer as well, as far as gaming goes. So keep an eye on the Twitch right now. We will be doing a live Twitch today. It'll be on my personal channel today, and then we'll discuss, as Devin and I kind of make plans going forward, if we'll do a separate Fresh Take one, or we're just kind of keeping on mine going forward. So a lot of hats in the air to go right now, but we're happy to have you here on Fresh Take. However you listen to us, it's been we just actually passed, didn't even celebrate it, Devin. We just had our 10-year celebration here, so it's kind of apropos that we bring in 10 years and go to a different medium with StreamYard, going more live, and bringing you content in that way.
We're trying to keep up with the times.
Yeah. I will say, like, this StreamYard, much nicer.
Oh, I think so. Even like the audio, the stuttering so far just seems to be running really smooth. Zoom sometimes.
Yeah, I did find that there was massive lag on Zoom lately when we had been doing stuff. A lot of lag on the Zoom. And I kind of got to a position too. I mean, you look at how professional this is. We got the nice little tags down here. You got the beautiful StreamYard popped in the corner there. But when we move forward here, we'll bring in different logos on the top here. You have the Fresh Take logo and a bunch of different stuff for overlays and all that. So looking forward to bringing you all that exciting stuff. But Dev, that's the boring stuff. Again, new domain change. We'll keep you updated. Follow me on Jawa31 on X and on Instagram, and follow us on Fresh Take 42 on Instagram. And like I said, all the pods will definitely be on YouTube for this month. The audio side might be a little bit different. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do with the audio. As far as I know, the audio for this is coming up. We have a bootleg and B-sides that we did record, but that may be launching with the new domain. And I'm also going to be interviewing the Surge's Jason Ribeiro tomorrow. So that will also be on YouTube, potentially audio. We'll see. Again, it's kind of like when you have a business. It's like, do you kind of want to just launch everything with the new business? You kind of do. But we are excited to bring you all that new stuff.
Yeah, this is a lot of work by you. I very much appreciate how committed you are to FTN. And I'm just here to watch stuff and, chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. So,
Yep. So, and we're excited to be at Sneaker Expo tomorrow as well with some cool stuff there. So, I would say, as you're seeing the future of content too, the future of content is more with video podcasts as well. You're seeing, I mean, people still listen to audio stuff, but I actually run into a lot more people that have YouTube music than I thought I did, or have premium YouTube and they get past the commercial and everything like that, and then they download the audio for those as well. So that is a realm that people do seem to be coming into. So, anyways, without any further ado, Devin, in the words of the WWE World Heavyweight Champion Cody Rhodes, what do you want to talk about?
I didn't know where you're going to go with that. I thought it was going to be some catchy catchphrase. Xmen, just watched it yesterday, 2 days ago, and whew,
oh my god,
this is a show. This is a show for people with feelings.
I think we are in the apex now of animation again. I mean, I was telling Nick, I'm like, it's 1994 all over again, because we have X-Men right now, and then we have a new Batman that's coming out as well by Bruce Timm. So it's like all the good TV's coming out. We're all assuming Spider-Man 98 is about to happen. So we are in a good position going forward here.
Well, not only to mention those, but the resurrection of Clone High, as we've both been really high on in the past, really hit its swing. There's some pretty big anime going on right now that I'm watching, so it's a good time to watch animated stuff. Like, it's all there is to say, I guess.
As far as this goes, I mean, I guess spoilers. Can I get a banner that says spoilers on here? I can. Let's do
spoilers.
it.
3,
Let's
2,
do it.
1.
Spoilers. We're probably gonna spell it wrong because I'm so excited to. Save. Let's get it up here. Boom. Spoilers. Look at that.
I like that. That's awesome.
Wolverine literally gets the adamantium taken right out of him by Magneto, right out of the comics. And I just started reading that comic too, and I didn't get to that part, which I'm kind of excited for. But that's one of those moments, like, you're kind of having the conversation to yourself, is like, he's not going to do it, is he? He's not going to do it, is he? Is like, holy shit, he's about to rip the adamantium out of his freaking body.
So I was under the impression that it was not magnetic. But I also... Okay.
Sorry, Dad, we have breaking news. We have breaking news.
Okay.
FX is doing it.
Doing what?
They're doing it. We didn't think the bastards would do it, but they're doing it. Shogun Season 2.
No way.
Sonata is closing in and returning a deal, according to Deadline.
What? Wow. Huh. Okay.
It was just too. As we did mention on, I do want to get back to X-Men because it was great, but as we mentioned on our pod with Shogun, it was like, it was so popular, it's going to be hard for them to say no.
True. There's also a lot of like historical things that they can keep going with, and we know that much of this cast, much of the characters important to the show, survive in real life for longer periods of time.
Yeah. By the way, look at this again. This is
fantastic. Oh, that's cool. There you
go. So yeah, I mean, I wonder what that means as far as the Emmys go, right? Because this is going to be a White Lotus situation where they're going to put themselves in this year as a like mini series, and then once they come back, then they just go full into the drama.
Are they allowed to do that? Like,
That's what White Lotus did.
Who makes that decision? Like even White Lotus, we were under the were we told when White Lotus came out that it was going to be an anthology series, it was going to be a one-off? Like, I actually don't remember whatsoever. So if the original plan was just to be a one-off or then miniseries makes sense. And then they were like, due to the overwhelming demand, we did a season 2, and that's when it becomes an anthology, or I don't even know what it's called. Is it just considered a regular show now?
Yeah, they can still submit it as a limited time show for the Emmys.
Okay.
But if it comes after, when it comes back the next season, if it is a continuation, having Toranaga and everybody else in Blackthorn in it, then I would assume, that it'll just be another. I mean, look, I'm very mixed because I do think it ended perfectly, but this is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I would like more of these characters, so I'm very conflicted.
Yes. My feeling was just to leave the adaptation of the book where it lies, and then work on other things in the Asian saga by the author James Clavell.
Yeah,
I think that'd be way more impactful just to do all of his works as as we talked about, an anthology or limited series, because each one is so different. They're different periods of time, they're different areas of the world, and different stories and different characters. None of it's related, none of it's interconnected. So I'd like to go forward in that nature, although prestige and popularity and money and do a lot of things to a lot of people. So I may not agree with this decision. I'm excited for it, even if I don't necessarily want to see it go forward, because then we're getting into a situation similar to Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
and we all know how that turned out.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen, but I mean, I do trust everyone with it. But yeah, just a very exciting news that just went down right now. So we will see where it goes. Anyways,
except we're missing it. We're missing it. We're gonna miss a, for the spoilers, people, if you haven't watched Shogun yet, we're gonna be missing everyone's favorite character.
Yep. Unless we go super sci-fi. He rises from the dead.
Could you imagine that? It goes from
Shogun
being
zombies.
It goes from being a period piece to they found Stargate, and then it's this weird sci-fi crossover. Oh my goodness,
that'd be fantastic. All right, back to the Xmen chat. Again, I'm a child and I am loving this new toy that I get to play with here. So Wolverine, gets the adamantium. Now, this is going to be really, really cool, the story that they're going to go with, because in the books, when this happens, so 2 things happen. It seems like we're leading to Onslaught, because pretty much after this, Charles goes deep into the recesses of Magneto's mind, which more or less mends them together and creates the villain Onslaught. I'm still got to read more of the book, so that's the best I can give you. I would have normally done the deep dive on YouTube and everything to give you more insight there, Dev, but I'm reading the books now, so it's kind of that point you don't want everything spoiled for you. But it does seem like we're leading to Onslaught. Wolverine, we'll see Boneclaw Wolverine. He becomes a feral animal is the best way to describe it, because the adamantium was kind of holding a little bit of that in and made him a little bit more human. So now he just goes on a rage and doesn't really have any basic humanity in a way left in him. There was a point in the comics where they made him such an animal that they stopped drawing his nose.
Yeah. Well, Wolverine as a person, if we're talking about in universe, has existed long before he had adamantium infused in his body. So
that's what I'm wondering.
Kind of a return to form is interesting. I mean, one of the things that we, especially his relationship with Sabretooth, they were really feral people, feral creatures almost, and just killing machines. So for Wolverine to go back to that, default back to that kind of behavior is interesting. I got a lot of questions about Bastion. I don't know if you have the answers to those.
I have a few probably, but maybe not all of them.
So let's just clarify one thing that I don't know if the show clarifies or if it expects me to know or not. Is he considered a mutant?
It's kind of like what Professor Xavier was saying, right? He picked him up on Cerebro.
Yep.
So I guess there is a part of it that technically is there, but he is much more machine than anything.
Because he can talk to machines. Like,
Yeah.
there's not really a part of his body that's like machine per se. Like, he's not like Cable where he has a techno virus or anything. Like, he's always been able to talk to machines, which is why Cerebro picked him up. So did Cerebro pick him up because he talks to machines or because he has the mutant gene? Which is, I guess, a question for
I
another
think
day or
just
another
the
comic.
connection, just the connection that he had to machines. So he added. I think maybe Cerebro picked him up because it's interesting. Because the question is with Cerebro, it's this bigger question within the Marvel universe now. Like, is Cerebro just picking out a mutant gene, or does
Yeah.
Cerebro pick out collective superpowers? Right? Is it picking out what Bruce Banner becomes when the Gamma? Does it pick out what Peter Parker is with the Spider and what Captain America is with the Super Serum? Right? Does it pick out that, or is it just picking out the identifying factor of the mutant gene? That's the interesting thing I'd like to get more, because as we've got an Avenger teased every single week now, that's the part I'm like wondering in the larger, and I'd love maybe if we had an Andy or someone that's more comfortable knowing the books, they would be able to answer us that a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I don't think it stops me from enjoying the show. It's just a question that I had.
Yeah.
We're at a point now in X-Men continuity that I don't really know anything. And so whatever's presented on screen is what I'm learning.
Yeah.
And anything that I don't know, I need to ask about. I know there's tons of YouTube channels I could get those answers from, but I just wanted to hear kind of your perspective.
I was thinking that too. I wasn't 100% sure. He's definitely much more of a machine than a mutant. I think that's an obvious thing there, but I'm still very undecided with it all.
And so I haven't looked this up. Maybe I could do it right now, I suppose. Who's his voice actor? Because man, he sounds really familiar.
For Bastion?
Yeah.
That's Theo James.
Okay, geez. I don't know why I wasn't picking up on it. I know that you probably mentioned it last week, but it just kind of glanced right over me now that he's had kind of more of a spotlight.
Yeah.
Really great job on his part. The voice cast in general is huge. Let's talk about the episode actually. So, Magneto confronts Xavier, confronts the X-Men as a whole. He then gives everyone a choice. Rogue goes with him, which I'm pretty sure that's probably comic accurate, right?
Yeah.
Does she ever become good again? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, she's not bad. She's just like over the shit, right? It's same with Sunspot. Like, you look at both of them, right? She's just like, I've done it your way, and Remy died. And so I'm sick of all the bullshit speeches. Like,
right.
You've given us all these speeches, and look what keeps on happening. We were in Genosha. We saw a genocide you didn't get to witness. So you can't step in your shoes. And not only that, someone I really, really cared about died. And for Sunspot, he's just like, I can't trust even my own mother, who's a human, because she was ready to give me away just like that. So fuck all these people. Magneto is right. I'm going with him because at least he's not going to defend them here. He at least cares about us. So there is the biggest division we've seen in a long time. I mean, this show is always about the divisions between humans and mutants, but that was kind of the staple there at the time. There was the X-Men and Professor X's vision of like, we can all coexist together. But with the events that have transpired in these prior 9 episodes, Sunspot and Rogue are like, no, this dude is right. And then, what I perceive was Mystique with, can't remember her name, that was taken by Bastion. Yeah.
That's an unanswered question. I mean, the lack of Mystique is a real red herring here in terms of the idea that who is she playing? Like, we've seen Morph kind of occupy some different. He was Mr. Sinister for a brief second there, which was a nice little flip. So this Mystique is definitely somebody somewhere. Okay, I got 2 questions for you. I don't know anything about Sunspot. He seems pretty weak so far. Does he ever get
he's Omega level, man.
Is he really?
Oh yeah,
good for him. I'm excited to see, because you see his potential power, and you're like, okay, like this guy turns into basically the sun. I mean, it's
pretty
insane,
much, yeah.
But
yeah,
you're like, okay, like I want to see some real shit go down here. I don't classify any of those guys as villains. I know Magneto returning to like his red suit kind of distinguishes him as a villain.
Technically, Sunspot can absorb the whole being of a sun or of a star, and then use it against his enemies.
I'm waiting to see that.
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, I don't classify Sunspot or Rogue as necessarily villains. I don't know if they do bad things though, so that's something that you're gonna have to help clarify for me. Magneto returning to his red suit kind of seems like a villain, like that heel turn, and to use a wrestling term that I
don't even know if he's a villain, right? I think
which is what makes the show but the franchise so impactful.
Yeah.
There's two different ways of doing it, and it represents civil rights movements in the 60s, and we can talk about whether they be stand-ins for Malcolm X and Martin Luther King or whatever. Magneto's not wrong, and now I think Senator brought up in our group chat, like, Professor X kind of sucks.
Yeah, he does. I brought it up, by the way. I did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
When Magneto, Van Lathan, no, not Van Lathan, the rest of the guys on the Ringerverse have been bringing this up for a while. But when Professor X does some chat or whatever, and Magneto's like, you know what? I've been waiting to say this. Shut up. And it was that kind of shut up.
It was funny. That made me laugh.
Just like, it's not even just like, shut up. It's just like that friend that's always just trying to be better and trying to give you the you can do it. I believe in you. Is like, I'm sick of your shit.
Yeah.
Shut up, please.
There's a couple, reality, we're talking like the last 5 or 10 minutes of the episode, right? That's where kind of all the crazy stuff happens. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, there was a brief moment in time where when Magneto was giving the X-Men the choice of joining him after Xavier's and Scott's conversation, I really thought Cyclops would have joined. And that would have been really cool.
Not yet. We're getting there because that's X-Men Avengers.
X-Men versus Avengers?
Yeah, that's when Scott really turns on them and is just kind of sick of everything. So, and they've been building that slowly, right? From having that the TV interview that he had. It was him on the TV, and then Beast talking. So TV interview, even kind of passing Xavier, shooting Xavier there, be like, yo, you just got to trust what we're doing. And I do think the cool thing that they've done with this season is you're seeing a lot of more of the X-Men. And I would hope that we don't get X-Men Avengers in season 2. Mayo said he had a 5-season plan, but we'll see how much of that is regarding now that he's gone. He did seasons 1 and 2, so we'll see for 3 and 4. I would hope that we don't get X-Men Avengers next year because we have so much other stuff to cover, but I'd like to build it. But there is a lot of building blocks to X-Men and Avengers. Everything that's happened with Cyclops is there. Hope Summer Nuggets are around because we don't know where Bishop is, and Bishop tries to kill her.
Okay. And Hope Summers is Scott and Jean's daughter.
Cable's
daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
But we need House of M to get Hope Summers. So we have had a tease of Quicksilver, but no Scarlet Witch at all. So I would assume maybe that'll be next season that you end with House of M.
So you're gonna have to just really give me the Cole's Notes version of House of M, 10 seconds. Just what are they fighting about?
I will save that part, but more or less, Wanda just is so powerful. She literally just says, "No more mutants." Pretty much all the mutants cease to exist, and that's why Hope Summers becomes so important because she more or less is the first mutant since that gets born with powers, and she's looked at as the Messiah. And you want to talk about Omega level mutants? She doesn't need to be like Rogue, where Rogue needs to touch you. If she's in your presence, she takes your essence, which necessarily means if she was near Galactus, she would have the powers of Galactus. She was near Franklin Richards, she would steal the powers of Franklin Richards from just being near them.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I don't even know if the word Omega is
applies for her. Beyond.
Yeah.
That in the episode, there was that scene with Cable and Jean was a really cool little moment. I don't know, I know a little bit about Cable. That's kind of where the end of my X-Men knowledge goes. And then where he was you're a world-class telepath that doesn't skip a generation. Boom! And it was it's almost like the voice actor for Cable tried to do a really good Josh Brolin impersonation too. And I really felt that kind of mixed together, and it was holy shit. I've always liked Cable. I don't know much about him really, but for him to add that to kind of like his repertoire, it's like, damn, like why weren't you doing that from the beginning, bro?
Yeah. That was now I don't know like what happened with Jean. Like, is she? I've asked a few people that know the comics, and I asked because I haven't got here yet with anything with this Jean. Is she going to be destroyed, but then unleash the Phoenix Force? Like I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. There's so many questions. I mean, there's even the side of a lot of people have hypothesized that we're going to get Apocalypse at the end of this, and that will have his 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and that Gambit and other people that died in Genosha would be those 4 people. So it had me going back and be like, huh, I need to go back and see who died.
Right. Yeah. Because
I got 3.
Nathaniel,
I think it could
Nathaniel
be.
Essex. He dies. The guy with the ponytail, right?
Well, the big one is Sebastian Shaw.
Okay. Nathaniel Essex is Mr. Sinister.
Essex is Sinister, yeah. So Sebastian Shaw, I could see B1 because he just seems like too important of a character to just be gone. Banshee. No, Emma Frost survived, remember?
Oh, does she? Okay.
Yeah. Banshee.
Okay. Gambit.
Obviously Gambit. And then I have the other ones on here. One second here.
Everyone's favorite Leech.
Yeah, Leech died. So maybe Leech could have there. By the way, that speech as you bring up Leech with Magneto being like, I watched a young boy give up his hope as his eyes went to the back of his skull and died. I'm like,
disintegrated into a skull. I was like, holy shit! Like, we need to expand on this some more.
This is not the X-Men we grew up with anymore. Well, I mean, as I said in our group chat, I'm 95% sure. I'm 100% sure Wolverine never stabbed anybody in the original.
Well, the rules for cartoons for kids are quite particular, and that's kind of the same idea as to why a lot of like evil people don't have guns with bullets per se. They always kind of shoot lasers.
Yeah.
Him actually, like, I think you're allowed to do those kinds of things to non-human characters. That's why, like, him and Beast can basically slice through Sentinels no problem because it's not real. But yeah, human characters is like a huge no-no. Even though, I mean, of course, in our minds, we all know that like you cut people into ribbons, basically.
Yeah, and I don't know how much he cut people. Like, I know he didn't stab anyone like he did to Magneto, but I know he never. No, because
you can't show blood.
Right.
Batman the Animated Series was one of the shows that really pushed against those limits because, like, when you think of like G.I. Joe or Transformers or things like that, they always had laser beams and people just kind of got splashed with light and fell over. Batman the Animated Series had gangsters with like Tommy guns who shot bullets, although people weren't necessarily hit per se.
Yeah. But do you remember? I mean, I think after this is done, I'm just gonna watch back the original X-Men this summer. It's my binge, I think, now.
Nice.
Just why not?
Oh, there's probably tons of Easter eggs. There's probably tons of clues. There's probably lots of breadcrumbs. The one thing I'll say about this show, as like I'm kind of being reacquainted with a lot of X-Men stuff, and you've been a big help to me. Although it's rather confusing with like time travel, et cetera, I'm rather impressed with the idea that there's kind of like, I'll say it's like a accepted continuity of like huge events. Like you mentioned, kind of House of M happens, X-Men versus Avengers happens, Age of Extinction happens, Days of Future Past happens, but there's like kind of an order to all that. And so, this show is like, I would say, fairly comic accurate, it sounds like. And so I respect the fact that they're kind of respecting the comic source material and just giving it in a kind of like a new way of because a lot of these comics have been like, are 30 years old at this point. Kind of giving a new life to stories that are really impactful, not only to the X-Men, but if by some miracle, or I mean, we've heard all these rumors with the MCU and how they're going to incorporate X-Men and stuff like that. If this kind of resonates and kind of kicks things off for the live action stuff, like one of the rumors that I heard was that X-Men 97 was going to be, they're going to be shown on the big screen. And then
you heard, I don't know if you've heard the rumor of who the Wolverine and Deadpool Wolverine is.
No, I haven't.
This Wolverine.
So it's always been okay. Cartoon Wolverine's always Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not against
and
it.
then we can make the rule in Secret Wars that whatever happens with the Beyonder and everything like that, that everything kind of just gets kind of like we had a Crisis in Infinite Earth in a way, right? That some things get changed, some things got diluted, and all of a sudden, hey, that's why Wolverine is now someone different.
You know what? I'm not going to be the kind of person who's going to overly criticize, bringing cartoon characters into the big screen and being like, that's not who I would have had. I really don't care. I just kind of want them to get to this event so that we can start incorporating the right characters and the right stories and having different interactions that we all want to see.
Well, you are seeing, sorry to interrupt there, but you are seeing how when this Fox merger happened, what was the one thing everyone that was a nerd talked about was this property going to Disney.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Look, they want to see Avengers and X-Men, whether they be mixed together, whether they fight each other, it doesn't matter, but they want to see it done appropriately. And if now I'm still on the fence about Deadpool Wolverine. I'm really happy that Hugh Jackman's back. I'm happy about the suit, whatever. I have reservations about it though. And so I'm just like, I don't feel as confident about where the franchise is going as if I were, 3 or 4 years ago even. So
yeah,
if this is a wasted opportunity, like if they fumble the X-Men introduction into the MCU, then unfortunately I think that's probably the end as it being like a cultural juggernaut.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, you are seeing with how everything, like I said in our group chat again yesterday too, Shogun is the best show that happened this year.
It's the highest quality for sure.
This is the show that I get the most excited for, and it's been my favorite show to watch. Because I had not done 2 things on Disney Plus. I remember the last times I had done them. I had not watched the Disney Plus show. I was waking up, you remember, all the time, 1 a.m. Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
I had not done that in forever. I think the last time I did it was the episode after all the great Mando stuff on Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And the last time I rewatched an episode was the Ahsoka episode with Anakin. So not too long ago, but it's very rare that I was doing that. When I was watching WandaVision, I was rewatching every single episode.
You were just looking for Mephisto teases.
We were looking for teases. And so I've watched this episode now 3 times. I watched the Genos episode a bunch of times. I'm locked in, man. And then, by the way, too, can we talk about Morph and what his powers are?
It's whatever you want them to be. Doesn't matter.
I guess so. Like, talk about Omega level mutants, more or less. I will say the thing I did think was clever is I think he can turn into them and he has like somewhat of their abilities, but like obviously Hulk can jump a lot higher and everything like that. So I like that they gave the twist of Jean was elevating him to those. So he didn't have the super jump that the Hulk had. So I like that is such a small, minute detail for comic nerds. But I like that small detail that because they know we're going to bitch about it.
Mm-hmm. I don't really know anything about Morph, but I felt the line when they were talking, in the beginning of the episode, like Morph barely lasted 5 minutes and we fed him to the wolves. It's like, wow, that's true. You're not wrong there.
Think we get Thor or Iron Man or another Avenger next week? Or
Maybe
will the next week be end? Will the next week end our streak?
So the answer is yes, not Thor or not Iron Man. I could see Thor. I could even just see like just another fan favorite. Like for all we know, it could be Silver Surfer. It could be
Ant-Man.
Maybe I don't know why. Like Morph, like
Deadpool. I mean, that's the thing with this X-Men show. 1 tease ever of Deadpool. And here's my question too. There's been a few conversations, not as many as I thought it would. If they do, because Deadpool inevitably will be in this show. There's no doubt about it.
If you mentioned like the rumors that we talked about were true, and this is like the vehicle to introduce Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, of course it's going to happen. It's going to be a stinger at the end of the episode or something where they, I don't know, maybe do they? I guess the movie's not out yet because we're not going to know for sure if if they've already met in a previous interaction, or if they're meeting for the first time and
I think
becoming allies.
I
Or
don't
what?
think Wolverine's never met Deadpool, but obviously Deadpool breaking the fourth wall knows well about him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I and you know what? Like in the
Remember, after all,
universe,
he is Marvel Jesus.
it makes sense that kind of everybody knows who the X-Men are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they are kind of celebrities in a sense.
I would wonder for the voicing if Ryan Reynolds would be down to do it, or if they go get Nolan North, who's kind of been the other voice of Deadpool, or if they go get somebody else. I think
Well,
there's been one other voice of Deadpool actually. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Corey's brother in Boy Meets World.
Corey Burton.
Will, no, it's Will something.
Oh,
Friedel, something, but you know what I'm talking about, yeah. So it's Corey's brother from Boy Meets World. He in the Spider-Man Unlimited, he voiced Deadpool in that. He was quite good.
As I just said before, if this is how they're going to introduce X-Men into the MCU through X-Men 97, I'm pretty sure it's not hard to get Ryan Reynolds to do a 30-minute voice acting episode.
Yeah.
As
I
part of his
also
contract.
wonder when this is done, are we going like the next day being like, hey, X-Men's been renewed for this many seasons and there's Spider-Man 98? Do you think they're going to hold off on those like a D23, or are they just going to like hit where the iron is hot?
I mean, this is exactly why you have D23, or maybe maybe they announce it, or maybe there's a headline on like the Hollywood Reporter or something like that, without kind of a quote unquote official confirmation. I could see like a logo or a trailer popping for D23 though.
It's D23 is August 9th, by the way, so not too far away.
Do you think they'll wait to see the success of Deadpool though?
Yeah, it could do. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, Deadpool will be out literally 2 weeks before that.
I think
so. They'll be riding
wait.
they'll be riding the wave of Deadpool and Wolverine anyway. So
I think they're gonna wait. I think we're gonna get a trailer, if not a teaser of Spider-Man though.
Yeah, when we have the other Spider-Man show that's coming as well, freshman year,
Right.
which I feel bad for that show. I actually think for Spider-Man freshman year to be successful, you have to have Spider-Man 98 to be completely fair to that show. As good as that show might be, if you show a trailer at D23 without an announcement for Spider-Man 98, fans are like, that looks great, but where the
Oh no, downvotes.
Spider-Man 98? Yeah. I want Spider-Man 98.
This is kind of the shitty thing about some of these properties, and when you make like really beloved franchises, like you kind of have to bend to the will of fans sometimes, like in order to be a successful business. Like everyone wants Spider-Man 98. So as soon as you don't announce it, you're just gonna make people upset. And then let's say they don't announce Spider-Man 98, then Freshman gets downvoted. It's gonna get review bombed, Metacritic or IMDb or whatever, and then it just becomes like a Velma situation.
There is a rumor that our friend Gus Fring, who's the villain of all villains and everything he is voicing Norman Osborn in the show, and will also be Norman Osborn in the MCU. That is the latest rumor right now.
Cool.
Yeah. He's a good Norman.
Yeah, I mean, he's really leaning into the idea. Even this, what's that show? He's like the driver or whatever he is.
Yeah. The AMC show. By the way, apparently there's the interview with the Vampire show in his second season at AMC, and everyone's like raving about it. Just wanted to give that a love for people that are interviewing the Vampire fans.
Vampires haven't been popular in like 10 years, but let's double down. Although I love the movie, I really, really like the movie. So then again, I haven't watched it since
Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, like, come on, be back because we got a movie coming out, guys.
Yeah, happy with X-Men as a whole.
Last few things here on X-Men before we go. Okay, so for the potential apocalypse for Horsemen, so Banshee died, Marrow died. Marrow's like a C-level X-Men.
Is that the Irish guy?
Yeah, he kind of has the spikes all come out of him.
Okay.
Maura McTaggart, who is kind of a love interest of Professor X, played by Rose Byrne in the films.
Okay.
She does have, found out later, she does have some mutant ability, but I can't imagine she'd be an Apocalypse 4-horse.
For all we know, their powers
Mutant.
get augmented, though, right? So if
Yeah.
Apocalypse is gonna, use these as avatars, I could see some power.
The legendary Squid Boy.
Squid Boy.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Squid Boy. Here's an interesting one, Dazzler. If you had Dazzler with Apocalypse, but like a badass, and kind of re-energize the Dazzler idea of the character, specifically with the Taylor Swift rumors, and Dazzler probably, if that's the case, in 3 months, becoming one of the most popular heroes in all of Marvel.
I'm just kind of tired of people who like shoot sparks out of their hands, though.
I didn't even know Dazzler was in Genosa. Did you?
No,
maybe we did.
I don't know anything about Dazzler. Just I forget all about them. So
Sebastian Shaw, I would say Sebastian, Banshee, and Remy, I would say, are the three if this rumor is true.
Yeah, I think making Remy one, even if it's not comic accurate, would do a lot for the relationships we've established on the show.
Callisto, who's the head of the Morlocks, maybe.
Yeah. Our boy. What if our boy Leech gets like all of Magneto's powers?
Leech is one. Here's the other one, Madeline Pryor.
That's an easy
Goblin Queen coming back and really being the Goblin Queen.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. I think it's Sebastian Shaw, Banshee, Gambit, and Madeline Pryor.
Yeah, an undead version of the Goblin Queen, so she can like really tap into some dark side shit. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. You've convinced me.
All in all, this. It's also very rare. We've had 2 shows this year so far with this where it's just unanimous. This show is good. Like you don't hear anyone saying like, no, X-Men 97, this is whatever, and this is whatever, and this show sucks. It's just unanimous. People love this show.
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned with this show compared to something like Gen V, this show's storytelling is really tight. Every episode feels impactful because something happens that moves the story forward, except for the TV episode that I talked about that I didn't care for. I feel like my time's respected. I feel like as a fan, I'm respected. I feel like I'm always learning something new or always encountering something I didn't know about somebody. Even this episode, like even if you're a huge fan of the comics, like even for me, I didn't know that Cable had telekinetic powers like his mom, or his.
I barely knew that when he's just like, it doesn't pass generation. I'm like, oh shit.
And then he does it.
Yeah.
And it's great that it was great that he didn't like just kind of, it wasn't like a Star Wars thing where he kind of like tickles it a little bit. He like gave a full blast. Okay, we're moving forward. Move on to the next thing. So
yeah.
So does Magneto not die?
No.
Okay. And then I really want to know, I want to deep dive. I'd like to have
Magneto as far as I know, Magneto has never died in the comics.
I could see that. You don't want to kill your golden goose because he's really kind of driving the franchise forward.
I will say, like, I don't know what my Magneto thoughts were before this. I'm like, oh yeah, Magneto's cool. But like after this span, I'm like, oh yeah, Magneto's just a pure badass. He's amazing.
Yeah, it's hard not to cheer for him in all honesty. I'd like to kind of have like a written explanation or someone explain to me when Xavier did the deep dive into his mind at the end of the episode, like what had happened and then like how he had like fought it off.
He didn't fight it off.
Because I'm not even sure.
He didn't fight it off. Scott shot the chair.
Yeah. Because I'm like, it almost seems to me in some respects, like, to me, one of the biggest questions I have about X-Men a lot is Charles Xavier.
Mm-hmm. I have questions.
Sometimes his powers seem like fairly appropriate, and sometimes they seem really nerfed, or sometimes he seems like really reticent to use them sometimes. And I know
he's not even like a top, like you go look at kind of the history of mutants, he's not even a top 4 telepath. Like,
oh really?
I believe people would have Cable ahead of him. We just saw people would have obviously Jean ahead of him. People would have Emma Frost ahead of him, I believe.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. I didn't know that. I always thought that people regarded him as like one of the strongest mutants.
No.
Okay, good to know. That changes a lot for me.
I thought that too, and I'm learning more and more. There's just way more powerful. Like, just look at the Summers family alone. Like his brother Vulcan, that we saw a little bit when Charles was in space. We saw Vulcan for like a brief second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go Google Vulcan. He's powerful as hell.
Cool. I like this idea that there's like that Xavier is not necessarily the most powerful, but he's kind of becoming like a role model for people. Or he's trying to live by a certain way. And I mean, I see his point as well.
Screen Rant did a countdown of the most powerful mutants. If you want me to give you the quick top
sure.
10 here.
I'm down for it.
Okay, 1 second. Screen Rant's pretty good. Actually, so Onslaught's the number 1.
And that's the fusion of those two?
That's the fusion of them. Number 2 is Legion, which is Professor X's kid.
Okay, and who does he have a kid with? Is it like She-Ra or whatever?
I wonder if it's McTavish. I'm not sure on that. I just started reading Legion again. I'm sure there's comic fans yelling at me. I just started rereading all this X-Men stuff. Okay. Like it's been all I've been reading is X-Men, so I'm trying to catch up. 3 is Scarlet Witch. I would argue Scarlet Witch is more powerful than both of them personally.
Okay. Well, she's got magic on her side as well. So
then you have Franklin Richards. He's defined as a mutant.
Okay.
And I would have Franklin Richards over both of them as well. Then you have Jean Grey, telepath. Then you have Kevin McTavish. So I believe that would that's Margaret McTavish's kid. I don't know who she had that with. Then Professor X. So they do have him ahead of Emma Frost.
Okay. Good stuff. I mean, I don't really know anything about Emma Frost anyways, so I'm not overly butthurt by that.
Yeah. And then just the last one here is strongest. This is from Comic Book Online. They did this start of the month. They did the most powerful Omega level mutants.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even heard of this guy. James Bardock is known as the most powerful. He can manipulate reality. And then again, Falcon is up on that list as well. Falcons and Legion. You're going to see them in most. So, anyways, there is X-Men. 10 out of 10. No notes. Fantastic.
I have a list of Omega level mutants on Wikipedia. Do you want to hear?
Yes, please.
Okay, so a lot of these don't have their own pages. Like Death and Famine, for example. I think those are pretty well established characters in the Marvel continuity. Mm-hmm. The ones that have their own page, so the blue link: Elixir, Exodus, Hope Summers, Iceman, Kid Omega, Legion, Magneto, Marvel Girl, Mr. M, Monarch, Proteus, Storm, and Vulcan.
Yeah.
So it does not. Now, Omega level mutant, a mutant whose dominant power is deemed to register or reach an undefinable upper limit of that power's specific classification. Both Magneto and Forge are the most powerful mutants of their power types on the planet Earth, magnetism and technopathy, respectively. But what makes Magneto and not Forge an Omega level mutant is that the upper limit of Forge's measurable powers could hypothetically be surpassed. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Forge. Remember, like Beast is like, "How did your leg not get taken away by?" He's like, "I just thought about it."
Yeah. I would really like to. I did a little bit of a Wikipedia dive on Forge during this episode, just because I wanted to know more about his background and why he was created and things like that, and his background. He's a Comanche or I think he's a Comanche,
so.
Native American, which is great to see. Vietnam vet too. Like he was one of the smartest people in the world, and he still went to war. Respect that.
Yeah, I'd like to know who's smarter. Again, we're just having fun with this, but who's the smartest in the MCU? I wonder. Is it Reed? Is it Forge?
Well, the 4 that come to mind are Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Reed Richards.
Okay, so Collider did an article on the 20 smartest.
Of course they did. Okay.
So who do you think is the smartest? I would probably say, off the top of my head, I still say Reed Richards.
Yeah. With being a very uneducated nerd, yeah, Reed Richards.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Not us.
Number 2 is Devil Dinosaur. Well, Moon Girl. The Moon Girl and Devil. They're relatively new. I've learned again. Marvel Snap. Thank you. We'll learn who Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur are, but Luna Lafayette. She is the number 2 smartest in the MCU. There is the closest we have for that. There's a kids show of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, but again, I found out about both of them from Marvel Snap. Number 3 is Valerie Richards. These Richards kids, man, they are just too much.
I know, hey?
Then Dr. Doom is 4. Then Tony Stark is 5.
Right.
Oh, okay. Bruce. They got Tony over you. Bruce is 6. They have Hank Pym as 7. Beast is Hank McCoy is 9. Peter Parker is 10. I guess maybe with Forge, it's not even that he's just smart, it's just that he can think about stuff.
To me, that seems like
it's not that he's not smart. It's just like he can think about something and create it. But doesn't the guy from Eternals have the same thing?
You know what? Marvel's been really quiet on the Eternals the last couple of years.
Yeah. By the way, we have the voice of Galactus announced. Go look at some of the clips, but his voice is okay.
Spot on. Okay.
It's perfect. And if we all we need is like a scene that we got like at the end of Eternals when they all had the Celestials like, you decide to not kill a Celestial, you will be judged. And that scene was pretty badass. That's what we need from Galactus.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's move on from one Disney property to another. Tales of the Empire. Devin, let it rip.
When Filoni just says, like, here's a story, damn. Like, we don't, like, he's a busy guy. He's doing a lot of stuff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did he do or not do the Book of Boba Fett? No. I don't think he did. Yeah, and I think it really shows.
He did do an episode of Book of Boba Fett. He did 2, exactly. In fact.
Yeah, okay. That's what I wanted to clarify, because I was thinking about this while Tales of the Empire was going on, because we know Tales of the Jedi was his baby. God damn, I respect him as a writer.
And now, he did do the final episode of Ahsoka.
Yeah. He is exactly what Star Wars needs in a position of power. I know he is in a position of power, but when he just decides to say, like, I'm going to do a passion project, I'm going to make, a 6-episode TV show here, basically an hour and a half or 2 hours worth of content. It is pretty damn good. And what we got out of Tales of the Jedi, and then for them to announce Tales of the Empire, the twist was so incredibly obvious. But just as a storytelling vehicle, seeing Dooku as a Jedi fall to the dark side and naming it Tales of the Jedi, excellent move. We all know what happens. Tales of the Empire, to have Barriss, to then flesh her out and then have her touch on the dark side, to have her touch on, and then, have her be a force of good in the Tales of the Empire, like just showing that for as many people who fall to the dark side, there's people who are resurrected from it. And looking back, it seems really obvious that you would have a reflection of Tales of the Empire as you would at Tales of the Jedi. But I didn't think of it at the time. So when I was like, oh shit, like Barriss Offee, okay, we're going to get a lot more of her disillusionment with the Jedi Order, her scrapping to survive, and then her finding like a space in the power vacuum that is the Empire, then joining the Inquisitor. The Inquisitors was like, man, like this makes so much sense. I'm really happy we're going to get to see it. For such a minor character, someone who pushed our definition of what kind of the Force is in the Clone Wars shows, I would think, and just kind of realizing that it's not always about like feeling things, it's about having things that happen to you and experiencing them, as what happened with her. And then for her to see some really, really bad things and be pushed to a limit, and then her realizing that it was the incorrect path. Man, I don't know whatever the opposite of a heel turn is, but like
she went back to babyface.
I thought that was actually really powerful, and it was really simple, but I think it was effective.
Well, I think they did a good. It's kind of like her path. It's funny with her framing Ahsoka, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the way that Ahsoka does leave, the Jedi Order, the way that she leaves the Jedi Order is a little bit more extreme, but they both kind of find their way back. And I think there's such I'm trying to find the right word, but there's something so perfect about her path of leaving the Jedi, like I said, and Ahsoka's, but then they both individually find their way back to peace and being into the Jedi way. It's so, and I think it's something that Yoda would be proud of, right? Of, not fully involving yourself to the dark side and still finding yourself back to the light, which most of the time we see the best do. Vader eventually did. Kylo eventually did. Now we have another example here where, she's kind of in this pit of death and she has to force choke and do everything she can to survive. Mm-hmm. But when really pushed with her back into the wall, she's like, all right, this isn't necessarily right now. Vader specifically did a lot more worse things before he finally turned.
Well, Vader does it so one of the things that I'll compare Barris to Vader is Vader did it through a path of self-hatred, self-loathing, and being manipulated. Barris did it from a point of survival.
Yeah.
Which I think we can all agree upon. Maybe if it's a you versus someone else situation and it has to be you, I don't think she's evil for doing it. But Vader does a lot of things for a lot of reasons, but mostly because he hates what he's become, and it's a reflection on everyone else. The thing that I would talk about Barris and Ahsoka, as you brought up, and I think that they'd obviously explored this a little bit in the sequel trilogy, was that the organization of the Jedi was a problem.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy, it was bloated, and a lot of the best, this is exactly why Dooku turns. They're ineffectual. All they do is, and it's kind of like Professor X. It's ineffectual. All they do is talk. They present themselves as being holier than thou, but they're all susceptible to fall into the dark side. So in reality, no one's perfect.
No.
Even if the galaxy thinks they are. And so what the Jedi had become in terms of a branch of the government is really not the idea of their religion, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a lot of probably nuances you can take in real life as well, right? Especially with how churches are organized and the amount of abuse and the amount of backstabbing, the amount of terrible things that the organization of churches have done is objectively terrible, even if the message that they preach is one of like love and tolerance and understanding, which are all objectively good things.
Yep.
And so what happened with Barris and Ahsoka was that they had learned that the organization could not continue for them, but they could still follow a path of their teachings. And so that is where for in the orders in the show, we have to kind of consider them as like being gray Jedi or whatever you want to call them. But in reality, they're almost the best examples of the Jedi. Luke learns this too. Luke learns this, especially in Legends, and he makes a lot of changes to the Jedi Order, learning from a lot of the materials that he had come across in his travels across the galaxy, and what he had learned from Yoda and what he learned from Obi-Wan. So what Ahsoka and Barris are in this new canon, I think, are a lot more in line with what Luke was teaching in Legends. Now, they have to do a lot of work to kind of, fit the sequel trilogy ideas into these shows. And so I think these are kind of pieces that I respect, even if I don't always agree with them.
Yeah. I thought it was just, number one, it's, you almost won't, we need to have one of these every May the 4th now.
This is
decided. There has to be, I think the path will be, though, it'll be Visions, a Tales, a Vision, a Tales now.
I'm fine with that.
The foreseeable future. We talked about D23. By the way, let's talk about Star Wars Celebration, by the way, Devin, just to put a just a little bit of a cricket into your ear that's like chirping very, very quietly. Do you know where Star Wars Celebration is next year?
No.
It's in Tokyo.
Ah, damn.
During my birthday week. So that is, I had some talks about stuff I want to do for my 40th, and I found that out like a day ago. I'm like, oh, okay, that is tempting. That is tempting. So I would think having like Star Wars Visions getting shown off there, and everything else is going to be there. And just because I remember them talking about it for the Star Wars Celebration 23, is like, yeah, we're going to skip a year and then we're going to go to Tokyo. And that'll be phenomenal. The crowd that you're going to get at Tokyo for that Star Wars Celebration. And I would assume that that will be the case, though, that we'll take a break from Matteos and then we'll go to an Empire. I mean, I like to think that Star Wars is in a decent place right now. I mean, Acolyte's going to tell a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it was nice to be in this world again. You know, the Morgan stuff was cool. There probably was someone else from the Empire I would have preferred a story from, to be honest. It was not bad. It was good. But I was like, oh, I would have, you know, when you see General Grievous, you're like, I wish it was General Grievous' story instead, please. Like Morgan stuff was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was dope to see Thrawn, and you kind of get the lead up to that Ahsoka episode. You hear Bo-Katan at the very end on the distress call, and we kind of know everything that happened from the Bo-Katan sending Mando,
and leads directly into Mando.
Yeah. So, and it was cool, but you can't tease me with Grievous and then just be like, I really want his origin story. Come on, Filoni. I know you got it in ya.
Oh, he knows he wants to do it.
Yeah.
So the Morgan stuff, I'm high on it, with the caveat that this should have happened as a Clone Wars episodes or a couple of Clone Wars episodes, especially in the last. Like, get rid of the drug dealers in space with the Pikes and Ahsoka. And if you're to introduce,
we needed the sisters, man. We needed the sisters.
If you were to introduce Morgan Elsbeth in the last season of Clone Wars, and then have the tease into Mando, that would have just been such a great, like, that Star Wars is best when it's done deliberately, because Morgan is after Tales of the Empire, Morgan's a great character. But in her previous, live action experiences, which was Ahsoka and Mando, we didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
And so we can't root or be excited for this character, which we've never met before, unless we need to start from somewhere. And I think that her particular story is fantastic. Essentially, her place of hate or darkness or drive or determination or whatever it comes from, whatever it is, comes from taking a side on the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, she was she was so anti, we'll call it anti-separatist. Not that she's pro clones or anything, but she was so anti-separatist that she ended up falling in line with the Empire because they stood against the separatists. And then her idea of, she's only concerned with her own survival, especially after getting kicked out of the Mountain Clan, which now brings a lot of questions because she came from the Night Sisters, but there are other clans on that planet who are not Night Sisters. So does the Mountain Clan have powers, for example, or how are they similar to the Night Sisters? How are they different than the Night Sisters?
I was wondering that.
We have no idea. These episodes, 3 in a row, 2 years ago, leading, the end of Clone Wars leading up to Mando, I think would have just completely changed our vision of that episode, because then, even in this show, we're seeing her fight with the Beskar spear. How cool is that?
That was really, really cool.
Now,
well, because then everything. Did you go back and watch the Mando episode?
No,
I did.
Okay. And
it was just kind of cool to lead right into it, and a lot more stuff is oh, okay, because now you're understanding where Morgan is and how it's everything set up. So even the kind of the build up to Ahsoka going and taking her on, build up a lot more, and then even knowing she knows where Thrawn is, she's working with Thrawn, and Ahsoka already knows this. So it's kind of this masterpiece.
It is,
and on Donkey voice, because we're going to be talking about Donkey in a bit, and how everything leads into it. I was like, this is perfect. It's perfect. You compare it, especially on May the 4th, there should always be the idea that this is the brilliant thing about Tales of the Empire is like, make me watch more Star Wars, which it did.
Well, it all links together.
Yeah.
And then that leads into the beginning of that episode because she lands on that planet onto Corvus, and we're like, well, why is the forest burnt down? Well, we know why the forest is burned down because we just saw it. How cool is that?
Yep.
And then
I didn't think about that. That is,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they've started teasing, which is one of the most important things about Legends, is the TIE Defender program.
Yep.
So in the Legends, they made it sound like it was, I can't remember all the details, but it made it sound like it was kind of a Thrawn plan or a Thrawn idea. Well, it's Thrawn's baby, but it's not his plan. It was actually Morgan Elsbeth's plan.
Yeah.
And in fact, if they had created the TIE Defender program, they would have won the war. And so now that they're making TIE Defenders a thing, that's just like, it's now all these snowballs are rolling. Like the Heir to the Empire franchise, the 3 books that from the 90s, like are going to fit fairly comfortable in this current canon, like the way that Filoni is introducing them. I don't know if everything is going to fit perfectly, but I mean, we've talked about this a long time. Like it's been pretty apparent. Like we're getting Tales of the Empire in live action. It sounds like so. Great, and it's great to see Thrawn. It's great to see it, like this is where Star Wars is really hitting its stride. And there's a little bit of political intrigue. There's master plans. There's people who have to stop it. There's all these different kind of nuances to it. So when it comes, like maybe the timing, is a little bit more like the timing for me. I would have liked it earlier because it sets up Mando, but the timing is also important now because it gives backstory to a thing that's going to happen, which is the live action Heir of the Empire. So maybe there's, them setting that up actually explains the movies better or the upcoming movie better.
Morgan didn't die, did she?
I thought she did. I think she does.
I thought so too.
Yeah, she dies on that planet, sacrificing herself for like the greater good or whatever.
Yeah, I had to go back. That's the one thing I didn't watch. Go back and watch that episode of Ahsoka. So I have to go back and watch that.
But you said you want to talk about force healing for a second.
Okay. Yeah. So she's dead. She's dying there. Like what like who has force healing and who doesn't? Like Rey and Grogu have it. But then like she's dying. Now is it only Jedis that have it? Is it because this other Jedi was a Sith? I mean, this other force user was a Sith?
Oh, Lynn?
Lynn, yeah.
I don't think everyone has it, just like the same thing like talking to animals, which
so why does Rey and Grogu just get it?
Well, that's kind of one of the downsides of
okay,
so one of the downsides of Rey that people call her is a Mary Sue or whatever it's called, like that she essentially just became good at everything all the time.
Yeah.
And she didn't have to earn or fight for anything or, work for anything. And so, Rey's a cool character, but her force path is like, that's the problem with the sequel trilogy is just the idea of the force is very
it's all over the place. Like I like those movies, but like when I see something like this, it's just like, oh, well, just force healer because we just willy-nilly went with remember when that Mando episode was like, you have to kind of watch this Mando episode for Rise of Skywalker because that's when Grogu did the healing.
And it's okay that I'm fine with some Jedi having it and some Jedi not having it, just like Leia or Plo Koon kind of have like force diplomacy or force persuasion. Okay, when it's the dark side, Palpatine has force persuasion. And which is like his speeches at the end of Bad Batch and things like that he kind of galvanizes people into action. But Plo Koon and Leia have force diplomacy.
Right.
So I like the idea that everyone kind of has different talents and different specialties and things like that. One of the things that online that I read, because I immediately went to Reddit as soon as I watched these episodes at like 3 a.m, and people were like, oh, like for the time frame, there's no way that Barriss should be as old as she is unless by force healing, she's giving up her own life force. She's actually accelerating
that too.
She's accelerating her aging by doing force healing for others, which is ultimately a Jedi act, which is a good thing.
You can't force heal yourself, right?
Until someone can do it, I don't know if we've ever seen an example of it. Which then was what kind of makes it kind of makes Kylo Ren and Rey seem a little bit wishy-washy now that we've seen other people do it so effectively.
Oh, right. They both did it on each other.
Yeah, it was kind of lame.
So I guess it doesn't matter if you're a Jedi or not. Even though Kylo did turn back to the light side, he was still
unless Kylo had it as a Jedi.
Yeah.
But then in that case, it seems like everyone has it, which then doesn't really make it that special.
Yeah. And then did Anakin have it? Like, was it in his genes?
No, the Anakin doesn't have it.
Okay, not that I didn't think he did. I don't Leia didn't have it, obviously.
Well, Leia never completed her training, so we don't actually know for sure. But then the other speculation was that by aging her, they've already casted someone in real life who is probably of that age demographic. So they're making her artificially older so that she could show up in the Ahsoka show.
Or in Heir of the Empire.
Yeah, or whatever, right? And now we get...
I don't think she's dead. I think Lynn saves her.
You know what? It's really hard to... We've talked about this...
They did leave it in the air. They didn't like... You don't know for sure if Barriss dies or not.
No, I'm assuming that she's not going to die just because people getting stabbed in Star Wars, unless you're Qui-Gon, is pretty low.
Shouts to that. Who was it in Obi-Wan? They got stabbed by Vader and survived.
Oh, the girl.
Yeah,
the Inquisitor, one of the sisters.
Yeah, one of the Inquisitors.
But we talked. Like, I think there's a pretty easy way of kind of force. You know, I can kind of squish a headcanon into this, and we talk a lot about how there are certain instant kill places and certain not instant kill places, or there's actually, especially in the Advent, there's a lot of places where you can get stabbed and live.
Oh, by the way, it was confirmed too that Barriss is the fourth sister.
Okay, so she was the fourth sister, but she lasted like, a couple missions, or who knows actually how long. It could have been.
I have another thing I want to bring up, but go back to the stabbing.
And especially we talk about like as the Jedi Order falls, and as as the Force gets kind of pushed away to certain people, and their training incomplete, it would make sense that really a lot of people don't know how to kill effectively with one strike. Or in the case of some people, they know exactly where they're stabbing people. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily it was Lynn's task to kill Barriss. I think I think her plan was to debilitate her, to then take her back to the Inquisitors.
Well, remember that one person's job was to kill Sabine, and they failed at that as well.
Well, that's because their training is incomplete. But someone like, for example, a Sith assassin, like Darth Maul, knows the exact point to stab Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm.
It's his job to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Asajj Ventress, kind of the same way. They know exactly where to stab. And I say the same thing for Jedi too. The Jedi know exactly where to stab to keep people alive. They don't want to kill people.
So you think Vader, I got the name of the character, but when Vader did the stab, did he think I don't want to kill you, I just want to mess with you?
Yes. Because especially through the dark side, like what they're doing is not necessarily a form of compassion.
Inquisitor Reva, by the way.
Thank you. It's not a form of compassion. It's a form of control, because now I brought you back from the dead, quote unquote. You're never going to die anyways. You're back from the dead. We're going to re-indoctrinate you. We're going to torture the shit out of you. We're going to make you angry. And then you're going to be an even stronger, a stronger weapon for us.
Right.
So that was, I think that was Lynn's plan when she found Barriss, but through Barriss's, like, through her undeniable love, changed her mind. And then, so she was never going to kill her anyways. She was too important to her.
I give it a 9 out of 10.
The Barriss stuff, easy 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like
I'm thinking about Morgan. Morgan was, like I said, it was solid.
Morgan's a 9, 8.5, 9. But we haven't even talked about like the greatest cameo since the 2003 animated Dexter's Laboratory Clone Wars, which was full power Grievous, baby.
Yeah, amazing.
Because he's truly, especially early on in the Clone Wars, and I think that this is what Filoni's doing. I think he's kind of retconning the fact. I think he's trying to bring the 2003 Clone Wars ideas into the animated space.
Yeah, you're kind of we've never seen the full death of the Night Sisters either.
We saw, a lot of them died.
A lot of them.
Mother Talzin dies, right?
Yeah.
And then we see Merrin in Jedi Survivor. So
Yeah.
It's just like the Jedi. Like there's more than just 3 people out there, but we haven't seen them all yet.
Yeah.
But to go back to Grievous for a quick second, like it's very clear that they are bringing that 2003 version of Grievous to different parts of media to kind of, and I know they're kind of retconning him because his live action appearances make him look like a baby. But where does the cough come from? Wouldn't it be great if Mace Windu at some point in time force crushed his chest and gave him a cough? So just seeing Grievous like as being a terrifying general, a tactical genius, and then of course like spinning the lightsabers, like, god damn, that's got to be scary.
I give it, like I said, high, but that's not the only Star Wars we got this week, Dev. Because Misa gonna hurt you.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Well, tell the people what they missed if they don't know what you're talking about.
Lego, who I think now the animated and and obviously a good portion of live action has Dave Filoni. Lego has Bobby Moynihan, who gives a lot of the ideas that we want to have and brings his comedy sense from SNL. Brought back the return. You talk about the General Grievous. He brought back Jedi Bob.
Jedi Bob. Yeah. You know what? I'm really okay with the idea of Lego Star Wars being like fan theories and just
this is kind of Star Wars What If, really.
Yeah, really funny. Just they're fan theories, they're what ifs, they're just funny little twists because they finally acknowledge Darth Jar Jar.
Yeah. So and Ahmad Best gets to like, I'm so happy for this guy. I'm so happy for Ahmad. Like he must just be like the happiest he's ever been. It's so fun.
I read some things, I think it was pretty recently, even if it was a couple weeks ago, and it had to do with the novelization of episode 1 or 2. And it gives a lot more. These scenes must have been cut or they just weren't fleshed out very well because George Lucas isn't very good at writing dialogue. But it fleshes out Jar Jar being yes, he was like a comedy foil and like he's like, slapstick humor. But he really becomes young Anakin's confidant because he's really alone in the universe, right? And so Jar Jar actually comforts him a lot. And they spend a lot of time together talking about how he feels and like being alone. And then he's always talking about how he's going to be Anakin's friend. And so it really kind of, I don't think it necessarily like refocuses Jar Jar, but it gives credit to a character who was kind of done dirty by the movies. I think there was parts that I mentioned. There's things that were probably skipped or cut or never really fleshed out because he unites the Gungans and the humans. He's also
I love the idea of the Gungans too. Like that's a really cool space that we don't get to really deep down in more because of everything that happened with Jar Jar.
And then he also gets elected to be a senator, and so it almost seems like he's just a really compassionate figure. Like he's really good at listening and because he's always been rejected by society. It makes sense that he becomes a character who's really good at listening to people's problems, giving advice, and being a support pillar for a lot of characters. And if that was the Jar Jar that we had got, rather than the Jar Jar that was meant to make 9-year-olds like me laugh, I think we would look at his character and the actor, Ahmed Best, totally differently. Now we're seeing him as as this Jedi savior for Grogu. Now we're seeing him as Darth Jar Jar, which is great. But there's a world of Star Wars, and it seems like it's only in the novelization of the books or the movies, sorry, that he's more than just a Three Stooges character.
Yeah. Also, you get to see Bounty Hunter Ewoks.
Oh my god, what a weird! I bet you they like eat people too. It's gonna be hilarious.
And then what was it? Like X-wing TIE fighters was another one.
Yeah.
So again, Bobby Moynihan, if he's just in charge of this realm, that's great.
Well, I mean, I don't know how many times we talk about, Bob Iger being like, oh yeah, like we're going to put less product out and we're going to like not, we're just going to focus on quality. And we're going to focus on quality and things like that. Visions, Tales of Blank, and then some slapstick Lego Star Wars humor is like kind of all you need for the franchise.
All the Lego stuff. The last one was okay. The one with Weird Al was okay. But for the most part, like all of them have been really fun.
The friggin' Halloween one was hilarious.
Halloween one was really good. I'm really enjoying that scene. All right, we got a few more things to get to, but let's do it, Dev.
Okay. I don't have a lot of opinions, so
I don't have a lot of opinions. And people wanted us to talk about it. Look, I would say go listen to our excellent correspondent and friend Senator on the Not So Soft podcast. Break all this stuff down. Him and his crew do a lot better job describing it and talking about the feud and everything with it. All I will say is it's been highly entertaining. And Kendrick has just murdered Drake. I can't even say anything that Drake's really said good in any of this feud. I thought when he did the first diss with push-ups, it was good, but I will say getting home on that Friday and Kendrick drops a diss, and then Drake comes right back, and then literally it's like, okay, this Drake one's okay, and then Kendrick comes right back, and it was like, okay, now it's a wrap. And then he puts out another one the next day. That's kind of a song, like it's a diss track that you can jam to.
I know, right? That's the weirdest thing. It's like it's also like one of the #1 songs on streaming right now.
There's going to be people in the club this summer just going like, "OV ho, OV."
There's a lot of
hate like this in Chappelle's show.
Hate. There's a lot of things within this beef that I'm not in a position to comment on, in terms of Drake's responsibility in the Black community and what he's he's more known for having like a white Jewish mother than he is for being Black. Something I can't relate to. I will say this as kind of like my only piece to this contribution here. Drake's a pop star. Kendrick Lamar's a rapper.
We've been saying this forever.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, Drake should never have really had done this. Like, I know he wanted to kind of prove himself in the eyes of maybe the rap community. He just so happened to take on a guy who's, at the top of his game right now and is like, he's probably the best. Well, I mean, Eminem's probably the #1 rapper alive. But Kendrick Lamar is probably the best rapper who's working right now.
Yeah, I would. That's why I don't. Drake, he had the Meek Mill one did really good with back to back, and I still don't think any of these have been close to like No Vaseline or Ether or anything like that. This last one is pretty entertaining and pretty good. Yeah, I would say
absolutely. I found it kind of a weird, like, Drake should just live in this world where he's not really offending anybody and he's just making his own music about being sad and like being lonely. And I think that would have kept like, because now it sounds like, so Kendrick Lamar streams are up some ungodly number and Drake's have fallen like more than 50%. And so now what happens is people now have to relook at Drake being like, oh, like now people are saying it a lot, like, oh, Drake's a terrible rapper and blah, 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 blah. Like,
are you saying he got Ja ruled?
A little bit, but it's also needless because if Drake and his team were smart, they never would have started this thing because that's not Drake's strength. Drake's strength is being like, basically he's like a celebrity for being a celebrity. He's kind of like a Kardashian in that sense now, where just basically everything Drake does, people like, and he has like, he's got a great brand. He's got really cool style.
He does have a great band, but even as someone that has an OVO shirt, I don't want to wear it in public right now.
Well, no, you can't. And that's exactly it. Like now he's hurt. Like in order to prove a point, I don't even know why I want to prove this point. Like I know they've been trading barbs for years now, but to kind of pop all this off has not only hurt Drake's reputation as a rapper, it's now hurting his reputation as a brand.
Yeah.
When it never had to be that way.
It didn't. I think you're right. Like when he did the 50 push-ups on, like if I was in charge there, I'm like, let's not do it. Because there's a few rappers I just don't think it's worth it, Drake. And Kendrick's one, Eminem's the other one. That you're just not going to win.
No one disses Eminem. Why?
No, because they're going to get destroyed. Remember Benzino? Exactly.
People said that Eminem couldn't rap fast, and then he released Rap God, and set a world record. So, like, see ya, Twista. Like,
Like, yeah, those are two I would suggest don't go against. Going against Meek Mill is one thing. Going against Kendrick Lamar is an entirely different thing.
Yeah. And but on the positive side of this, whether like for all we know, I'm not saying that this is necessarily planned, but things of this nature that make everyone, including us, talk about this is good for the genre. It's good for the culture. It's good for the idea of rap, right? It brings back a spirit that we haven't had in a really long time about people trying to prove how good they are. And part of the idea of rap is not only talking about yourself, it's talking about others, right?
Yeah.
It's clever comebacks and put downs, and it's bringing up things about people that fit your rhyme scheme and have double entendres and triple entendres and things that when people start reading the lyrics, there's other things that they didn't even catch the first time. That's what makes rap such a great genre, such a great vehicle for artistic freedom. It just so happens that Drake, who's like a mediocre rapper but really good pop star, challenge. It's like this whole Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's going to be entertaining as hell, but like, I have a feeling that Jake Paul's going to take like one right hook from Mike Tyson and like
Boom.
and learn what like fighting a true boxer is like.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Don't you just love this little?
Man, it's like I feel like we have to we've like prepared for this. We've done research.
All right, Dev. Future of gaming. I don't want to go. We could probably go like a whole hour on this, so let's try to keep it within 15 minutes and stuff. But a lot has happened this week. On one side, the Switch 2 more or less got announced, but Microsoft, dear God,
the bloodbath.
Oh my God, it was not good.
You make good games, guess what? You're fired.
Yeah. Talk about it, Dev.
Well, we're seeing this in terms of the tech industry as a whole with a lot of uncertainties. A lot of companies are doing layoffs. A lot of companies are reorganizing. And it just so happens now that Microsoft is like taking the axe to all these companies that they bought, including Tango Games, who did Hi-Fi Rush, which was nominated for Game of the Year last year.
Yep.
They also did Ghostwire Tokyo, which was a really solid outing because it's spooky. But yet, the monetization of live services and battle passes continue on. And so we are losing. It's almost kind of like analytics in basketball, how people realize like long twos were not efficient. And so people now are only shooting 3-pointers and layups. Gaming is coming to a point now where we only are going to have really small indie titles or triple or quadruple A experiences that are going to monetize the shit out of everything. And I think and the same thing with Hollywood, right? We're losing the idea of like those $50 million movies that were just like a fun adventure movie or a fun rom-com. It's either got to be MCU level franchise or it's got to be a weird A24 movie.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it in video gaming now. When you make a good game that's fun, it does not guarantee your success, even if it sells really well. And it just came out on PlayStation. It doesn't save you from being swallowed up and then being reorganized or redistributed to go work on another Call of Duty version or another, battle royale with a battle pass. And we're just in a really weird spot now where the business is changing so rapidly. Gaming is obviously one of the biggest money makers in the world right now. Companies obviously know that, but through Microsoft's interesting business choices, creative people who make really entertaining products are suffering.
Yeah.
And there's been some rumbles of people being like, it's actually like the idea of Game Pass has become a real thorn in people's sides because Game Pass is a phenomenal service. But what's happened, and I don't know if I agree with this or not, when you put everything on Game Pass, it's really hard to justify numbers. So a game like Hi-Fi Rush, I'm going to keep bringing it up just because it's so topical, was nominated for Game of the Year, day one Game Pass, and then So now you can't prove that it was a successful hit at all because they don't get sales because it's only part of the subscription service. And so now it kind of redefines what the idea of Game Pass should have been in an effort. Like Microsoft is basically, because they're so big, they're taking a hit on all their biggest properties and all their best properties, putting it into Game Pass so that people buy it, and then complaining that things aren't doing well enough. Like, I don't know if I agree with Halo, the newest Halo or Gears of War or Forza being on a Game Pass day one, because you're not incentivizing. It's the same reason why, like, the brand new movies don't go to Netflix per se. You want to let them breathe in theaters. You want to let them breathe on through the e-store, sell millions of copies, and then a year or two later maybe go to Game Pass.
Yep.
But because Microsoft is so desperate for a market share of gamers now because of their mismanagement of a lot of their properties and the rollouts of their consoles, they have to put everything that they possibly own onto the service that they now can't justify letting people make good games anymore because it's not making enough money. That's such a catch-22 to that.
Well, and it kind of comes to, this week with Animal Well, produced by Big Mo, which is Video Game Donkey, a favorite of this.
Published. I just want to say published.
Published. Thank you. Published by Video Game Donkey and done by one guy. The music, the puzzles, the graphics, everything. And it's done by one guy. And you took a guy like Donkey who loves video games, loves those specific type of video games, and does make funny videos and stuff like that, but really does like the art of a good game. And I think Animal Well, would have been able to, find its audience. But I think it's interesting now what the future is going to be for something like this, because you had someone like Video Game Donkey, it got a bigger platform being on Big Mode Games. And people are already talking about this is the game of the year that fast because of the platform that it had. And it gets to show kind of what you were talking about with what Microsoft is doing. I would love to see if we have more studios like this that have somewhat of name that gives it a chance to showcase off something, and then it gets to blow up in the way that Animal Well does, which is just a day later, but it's number one on Steam right now.
It's always funny how gaming analysts or business insiders are always so blown away by gaming numbers when a good game gets released, and they're always like, I'm so, like the industry was just blown away by the reception of Helldivers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah, because it was just a good game. Like there was nothing extra to it. It wasn't overly complicated. It was easy to access. People could play with their friends. Like it was just it was
it's like that too that I just played is Dave the Diver.
Yeah. Now, Helldivers is not necessarily an indie game per se, but I'll bring up a comparison I just kind of thought of with Donkey, who is an insanely important part of gaming culture as a whole. He's got like 8 million subscribers, 9 million subscribers on YouTube or something like that. That's crazy. Former League of Legends player. And for all the funny things he does, his critiques are probably one of the most important things for the genre. Because from basically, he's no different than us, but he's able to articulate why things are good and why things are bad, probably in a more eloquent way than we are. And what he's doing now is he's taking his platform to giving people the opportunity, as you mentioned, who wouldn't normally have that, to now expand it to his reach and his audience. Not only that, but with his blessing.
Yep.
And so he does not have any creative input, and he's gone on record saying like he's not going to review it because there'd be a conflict of interest, which I really respect.
I thought the video he did was great.
It wasn't about what he thought of it. It was that he was proud of it, and then he let the person who created it, whose idea it was, to expand on why it is good.
And now it gets me excited because he has that 1942 level game that I'm excited about, which we don't have. Like, I'm just really excited.
Well, gaming doesn't have to be overly complicated, and it kind of is going to lead into my too soon review of God of War Ragnarok. This, which is a franchise that I'm really fond of. But anyways, let me go back. It was kind of like Steven Spielberg leaving Universal and creating DreamWorks. Right? What had happened was he needed a vehicle for animated movies, created DreamWorks, and now look at where DreamWorks is compared to Pixar. Because there was people who had unique ideas and visions that he just let cook. Most DreamWorks movies have nothing to do with Steven Spielberg.
No.
basically it was just his money and his name got on some of these projects that people then gave a chance to, and then got shown how creative they could be and how strong they could be. And now here we are. Same thing with Donkey. Like, he's just putting his name on it, and because we as a community already trust Donkey, we're going to trust this game. So I'm this is when gaming, like, this is what makes me really excited to be a gamer, are all like, and Celeste was a great example of this. Hollow Knight's a great example of this. Like, these games that these
Dave
people
the Diver
do,
again.
Dave the Diver, Dredge. There's always going to be a spot for indie games, kind of like, DreamWorks or A24. It just so happens that people are being pushed to those more and more and more, because we're really tired of the commercialization, quote unquote commercialization of AAA video games. And we're learning about that with Kill the Justice League. We're learning about that with the Marvel Avengers game. We're learning about that with Anthem or Redfall. Like, when corporate greed, like, you want to make money as a video game company, you just let people make like really interesting ideas and let people buy it. Rather than trying to nickel and dime people. And we even saw that with the public reaction to Helldivers, right? Last week, it took 48 hours, but PlayStation was like, no, you need a PlayStation Network account to play this game, even if you're on PC. And people were like, hell no. There was like 450,000 negative reviews on Steam alone and then 2 days later, PlayStation said, no, you guys were right, sorry. Because what had happened was, not every country has access to PlayStation Network.
No, they don't.
But a lot of people have access to Steam. And so then you're isolating a group of people just because of where they're born, who are having a lot of fun with the game. And guess what? Now that had happened, like, yeah, it's a huge fumble, but they did the right thing and backtracked, and now the game's just as popular as it ever was.
You're kind of seeing that. You're seeing that with so many things, like Fallout. Anytime there's a movie, like Last of Us jumped out right afterwards. These movies are really helping jump up as well. But I will say, like, Donkey did have this other video, and I thought he talked about, this hasn't been remade and this hasn't been remade. I'm like, yeah, everything just kind of gets remade. Like Paper Mario just come out. I think that was the point.
That was absolutely the point, was the lack of innovation. I'm not going to say original and fresh ideas, because a lot of things have come out that have been original that have flopped, but deliberate execution. Unfortunately, with just like movies, just like with all media, nostalgia is a really, really powerful drug. And because we don't have access to a lot of these older games in their original states, we have to rely on these remakes to play. Like, how great would it be if Game Pass, and I guess this will be, I'm sure there's a podcast me saying like, oh, Game Pass is the greatest thing ever made, even though I don't have it. How great would Game Pass be if they just had every Xbox game on it, an Xbox 360 game?
It'd be great.
That we could, because what's happening is now we are no
You're gonna
longer
have people arguing that that's what Delta is now in your iPhone, but that's not the proper way to go about it.
I have no problem supporting companies who do responsible, like who respect me as a consumer.
Well, I pay Nintendo the stuff I do to have the 64 and the all the other stuff they get with that pass.
But why doesn't, the answer is because they want to squeeze more money out of you. But wouldn't it be great if Nintendo eShop, Xbox Game Pass just had every, like, why isn't every NES game ever made on the eShop? Ever made?
I know. Well, some of them have to do with licensing stuff. So.
And that's what I mean, right? But it's also like, it almost seems like it's a publisher's responsibility to ensure that their published works stay published.
Yeah. But you're going to get like Disney games on there, right? Like Tailspin.
Now, what's going to happen? It's the same thing with streaming. Like, what's going to happen are these publishers, and we already saw it with Ubisoft and Activision. We're starting to see like, why would I have it on Game Pass when I can make my own subscription service?
Yeah.
But we're doing a really poor job with the preservation of classic games. And now there's a few games that we are talking about that people cannot play unless they have a physical copy. of. And maybe the idea for Game Pass was not to put Halo Infinite, Gears of War 5, the newest Forza Horizons game on day one, but to let those sales go for a year or two, a year even, and then add them to Game Pass as a service with already the classic library that you come to expect.
Hmm.
That's a perfect world for me. That's a perfect world for me, but that doesn't have recurring revenue. That doesn't make shareholders happy.
Also, for some of this Game Pass, I mean, for the PS Plus, like I told you, like, so Animal Well's on there for free, which is cool, and there's some other great games on there that I want to play. And I do think, the idea of a Game Pass or PlayStation Plus is clutch in the sense of, beforehand for PlayStation Plus, let's just say I was paying, I think it was $129. So $129 for the year, you can kind of justify that's 2 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like 2 games, and like in that time, I have completed, I think, 5 games in that time.
That's awesome.
But now it's jumped up to almost $200. So now we're talking about 3 to 4 games just for the year. And I know I just said I completed that, but like one lump sum of $200 right there doesn't seem to justify the price tag that you're getting for PlayStation Plus.
Well, and the quality of the offerings that they receive every month really varies.
Well, did you hear the Ghost of Tsushima thing?
No.
I have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure what I had read was Ghost of Tsushima will no longer physically be available. The only way to play it will be on PS Plus.
Interesting.
And I think that's just the start of where we're going to go. Well, we already heard the stuff with Sony this year, where people had the DVD, not the DVDs, but the movies and the shows they had bought.
Yes.
They thought that were theirs, and Sony was like, no, fuck you, they're gone.
No, you only own access to it. You don't actually own it.
Yeah.
Which then ties back into the idea of like the history of gaming and just a lot of these classic titles and how we access them. And
it is so much easier to get a streaming version of something. And, I would say too, I think you were ahead of this, but like, something like Animal Well, I don't really care how much I'm fine paying full price because I want to support the developer. I think it's Billy Benson is the guy. Basso, thank you. Billy Basso, and then I want to support Donkey and Big Mode. So I'm happy supporting them or Dave the Diver or anyone when their games come out. But something like when Lego Star Wars came out, which is great and fun, but you were so smart and waiting. I was like, I need to have it now. I think with a lot of these games too, like there's always game sales. There's always a game sale. Like you can't go a week without a game sale. And most of these games, Dev? I mean, like Star Wars, Lego Star Wars now, I've seen it like in the Nintendo shop. I've seen it in the PlayStation shop for like $20, $15 as before it was like the full like $70. And there's always like, oh, it's the Ubisoft sale. It's this sale. There's always stuff happening. I mean, and
let me tell you, let me tell you right now,
summer game sale starts pretty soon here as well.
The lowest price that Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga has been as recently as March 27th was $23.99.
Here you go.
Due to this app that I have, which then it also leads into the idea of AAA gaming and what I was going to talk about with my too soon review of God of War, which as a product is so incredible. It's exactly like a Marvel movie. It's so incredibly polished. Every little detail's been well thought out. It's the pinnacle of like game technology, voice acting, motion capture. But there are so many things, design choices about this game due to a lack of innovation that get in its way that prevent me from. It's not that I don't have fun with it. I don't have more than 5 minutes of fun before something really fucking annoying happens. And I have to like do it's not even a cutscene, but like if I have to stare at the back of someone's head while people are talking, while we have to walk through a fucking pathway, just to get some exposition out of people, I'm so annoyed. I'm so annoyed with climbing sections that are just spray painted in this huge mountain range, and I have to go only up one route, and there's a side branch for a collectible. Like, it just takes so long because your character is so goddamn slow because you got to listen to them talk. When some of this stuff can just be like, I don't care about climbing. climbing up one path is not enjoyable because it's just the same as walking down a straight line and watching the back of someone's head as they talk. That's one of the really annoying things about this game is that it just I've put 50 hours into it, and I feel like 4 or 5 of those hours are just slowly walking, listening to people talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this, like you have to go. They're not even missions.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're between like combat arenas. Like suddenly they gotta tell you something really important about the story, which is great. But you have to like walk slowly as you're going from one arena to the next, which it could be done in a cutscene. It could be done any other way. I have to climb up a mountain range, but I can only do so during one particular pathway, which actually doesn't involve any skill because it's not actually part of the game. It's not even a gameplay experience. It's just a push forward experience. Not only that, like the amount of menu navigating that you have to do in games like this now, like, yes, they're giving you the illusion of like, oh, like you get to play how you want. Do you want to have a defensive build or do you want to have a strength build? But every time you get something new, you have to then go compare it to something old, and then all you're looking at is like these arbitrary stats. So but that happens every 10 minutes. And so what happens is I'm not like these old God of War games were fun because they were fast paced. Same thing with like, Ninja Gaiden and all these like Bayonetta, for example. They just kept pumping action into you the whole time, and they didn't really care how you played it. God of War is like, you have to, like, I spend so much time looking through menus at a move list to then unlock the next move because I need to remember what move I was doing. So then I can spend experience points to unlock a gem to make that move stronger. When I'm not playing organically anymore, I'm just playing to like min max my character. And so it's almost like I don't know if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, but you get a character sheet, right? And you have to write roll dice and you get all your stats, whatever, right? Like I feel like I'm just constantly looking at my character sheet rather than actually just like moving my character around and like fighting things. And so it's like it's always getting in my way. Like I get these sustained periods of really, really fun combat or a really great boss battle that only AAA gaming can do. And then it's bogged down because 2/3 of it before that fight, I was managing my menu for 5 minutes, which I don't even know all the systems that this game does because it's not explaining them. Like I don't even know what runic powers do. Like I kind of know what they are, but like I don't know what they do. So I don't know how to maximize them. I don't know how to maximize like my partner's 7 different little slots that you can attach like different things to. I don't know if I'm doing it appropriately or if I'm even having a good build because it doesn't show me that I'm having a good build because there's so many different options.
I find it so interesting you're saying all this just because I recently got 2K and FC24. They were super cheap on the eShop. And it's just the same shit. And I would say FC24 I had not bought a footy game for some time, probably since I got my PlayStation 4. So that was like FIFA 14 was probably the last footy game I got. And I was like, well, Euro's coming up and I'm really excited for it. Like, let's do it. But I want to create my own club. So whatever. It is so, and people might get mad at me and whatever and say like, oh, it's not that hard. But it is so convoluted to just like, where are the rosters? Where's create a player so I can make a team and then go into a season? But it's like, do this, be a player, do this, do this, do this, do this. Mike, that's great. You have the options. I just want one thing. And then it's like, be a club, be a player, and go online against everyone. I'm like, I don't want to go online. I just want to create a team of people I know. Try to be not right in the Premier League per se right away, right? Rise up the rankings type of thing, kind of like a Wrexham. And just play that when I'm watching a show. That's all I want to do. That's why I got this game. And for the life of me, this shit is so confusing to figure out how to do that. Like back in the day, it's like, hey, here's the roster option. It's just like, and even on 2K, it's like, hey, here's this and this and this and this. I'm like, that's cool. I don't care about any of this online stuff. Just let me go and do this. This is why the number one game I played this year, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably going to be my game of the year. Actually, will probably end up being Animal Well, but Marvel Snap is just so fun for me because it's just so simple. I just go in, I pick up the cards, I figure the powers out, you use your mind. So simple. In some of these AAA games, I almost wonder, and that includes these sports games that we consider AAA games, sometimes I just wonder, like, are you just overthinking things?
Yes. Well, that's why I said it's getting in its own way of being a
Yeah.
really enjoyable, polished experience, just like the MCU. The MCU, when it was just like a simple, and I don't mean simple as in like easy to understand or not complex, or I mean simple in terms of like approachable. When
Yeah.
games are approachable, they're fun. And because what happens is you have to rely on a really addicting gameplay loop, which is exactly why Marvel Snap is fun, is because it's the gameplay loop is enticing. The gameplay loop for God of War and the presentation of God of War is an A plus 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 triple A. It's the pinnacle of the art form. But then what happens is because they want to like flesh out like their quote unquote value for it, they're forcing all these weird systems on you and all these weird antiquated design ideas, which is like walking up mountains and shit like that at a slow pace that prevent me from actually playing. I feel like I'm doing just as much managing as I'm doing playing in a game that's literally about chopping monsters in half. If
Yeah.
I wanted to play a game about managing, I would go play Stardew Valley. I would go play Minecraft. I'd go play a survival game. But I'm not. I want to play an action game. So why don't I have lots and lots of action in my action game? I have some action in my action game.
Yeah. Before we're going to move on, we're going to get to the rundown here really quick before we get out of here. For those that are, watching on YouTube or whatever and want to see more, we will be doing a quick 20-minute, 30-minute kind of preview of Animal Well. So that'll be over on Twitch. Jawa31 is the username for Twitch. So you can check that out over there. But just kind of your last thoughts on this whole thing, Deb, before we get to the rundown side of things.
Well, it's exactly why I've pivoted to indie games, and you've pivoted to kind of simpler. Like that's why Mario Wonder works so well. Get to the end of the level, but like we're gonna show you some
Mario
really
Wonder.
cool.
And
We're gonna do some really cool things on the way there.
Marvel Snap, it's so cool. Just being in the gaming community too, and people like debating about the powers of the cards and everything like that. And Morton, who plays Marvel Snap, he's like, "Oh, you like buy into the season pass?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Because I do like it's season pass I am comfortable buying into.
Yeah.
It's $12 that you pay for the month for the season pass, but it gives me extra tasks to do. And it's a game that I know I'm going to be putting in like 30 hours plus into that
Nice.
I'm more than fine giving them my money.
Right.
I'll probably I'll probably end up paying for Marvel Snap, probably giving them about $100+ by the end of the year. But I'm okay with that, knowing what the money is going towards for the piece that I get with gaming, which is what we want at the end of the day, is why we game, right? And for
Just have
me,
fun.
that's why I'm totally fine doing the seasons pass on Marvel Snap. And I'm also glad to announce Morton and I are working on a Marvel Snap podcast that we're going to be doing.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know how this name has not been taken yet.
Hmm.
Snapchat. How has this not been taken?
Maybe because every time someone tries to come up with the podcast Snapchat, they get sued. Who knows? You're
Yeah,
gonna find
maybe.
out.
You go Marvel : Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
And it hits with the MCU stuff as well. And yeah. So Dave the Diver, by the way, Dev, this game is so fun. It's so simple, but so fun. I understand. And so it's so interesting. I'll end on this. Like, I have these games in my PS5 and I have all this power and I'm loving the PS5 and I know you are too. But I'm also just like, I think I'd rather just play this on the Switch. And I'm just like wondering like where we are right now. We kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, but we're in, believe it or not, like the 4th year of the PS4.
Yeah.
So more than likely we only have like 3 years left of the cycle of this system. And
I've
well, it
played
is
like
a unbelievable system, but like what's the defining game? Like I can say PS2 dev, what's the defining game? PS3 dev, what's the defining game?
Yeah.
PS4, what's the defining game? Like, oh, this. Oh no, this. PS5 does not have that yet, and we're already hearing some talks about PS6.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really weird point that we're in. I've talked about this in terms of the idea of innovation and things of that nature. And Dunky did a video of this like about a few months ago, and it's just like the like 4 of the best games on Metacritic for PS5 were also released on PS4.
Yeah.
God of War, Bloodborne was a remaster. Last of Us 2.
This is why Switch is the best system in the last 10 years to me, because it has games that will be memorable between Odyssey and Zelda and people that love Splatoon, and I could go on and on and on.
Well, even just
Smash.
like the games that I'm playing are PS4 era indie games that were on sale, or like 16-bit or 8-bit like retro style games that are like relatively new, but they're done in an old style. And so like God of War is the first like next gen game I've played, even though it came out. I could have bought it on PS4, and then it's kind of like, oh yeah, the reason why I don't play like I could have watched this on YouTube and had just as good of a time. Like there are some things I really enjoy about it. Like I like facing the optional bosses and stuff like that. The story's so phenomenally well done. Same thing with Jedi Fallen Survivor. But it was like I've played this type of game a million times, and because I don't do anything new ever, I feel like I want to play them less. I want to keep up with the story because I like the franchises, but I don't want to support stale gaming. And that's what this is. Like AAA games are stale.
By the way, Kalkoskas just got his first Lego block.
Oh, really?
And, set as a Lego person. I think that kind of goes to Star Wars Outlaws. I say this now, and I'm going to try to keep my word, but I can't promise it. I'm going to try to do everything in my being to not want to be like, ooh, new, I need to get it. And let Star Wars Outlaws go on the inevitable Thanksgiving, Christmas, Boxing Day sale that I know it's going to.
Or even like, what if, like, okay, so we've seen a couple cinematics for it. I'm sure the production quality of the cinematics is going to be phenomenal. In terms of a gameplay experience, what if it sucks?
Yeah, I mean, if you know, as much as I don't really like IGN or GameSpot or any of them, I mean, we still kind of do care to a degree about the overall reviews.
Yes, we do. Of course we do.
From these. So if it gets like a 7, then I'm definitely gonna hold off. But if it's like, hey, it's a 10, I was like, shit, okay, I gotta buy this.
Well, if it's a 7, I'm gonna watch it on YouTube.
I probably will watch it on YouTube, and then one day if it's like, hey, Outlaws is like $15, I'm like, hey, you know what?
Sure. Perfect. If it's a 10, I still might watch it on YouTube because I want, like, if it's exactly what we think it is, if it's Uncharted in Star Wars, I've already played 5 Uncharted games. I don't need to run my third person character over a box to shoot a thing to fall down on a crate on a guy. Like to then run up to a guy to push the circle button to punch that guy. I've done it. I like doing it, but I've done it. When you want to introduce new systems in this game that I have never done before, which is exactly why Force Unleashed was so popular, when I do things of that nature, I'll buy it. But if it's just
Qatar was a free trial on the
Switch.
Oh, no
way.
I haven't been able to play it. I've been busy, but I'm hoping to play it today. Force Unleashed was a free trial. I just missed it, but it's $12 right now. I'm still like hovering it, but I'm getting to that point. We've all seen those sketches where people are like, well, it's a Steam sale, so I'll just buy it now. Like, there's so many things like that's on sale. Like, I'll play it eventually. There's so many things on my Switch. I'm like, oh, I said I'd play it one day, but I never did.
Well, that's exactly why I just follow this app, like my PlayStation Deals app, because it's not that I need to buy it right away. I like seeing when games are on sale, but it also shows you how often it goes on sale on. So if I miss this sale, I know that it goes on sale every 3 months. Well, maybe in 3 months I'll be ready for it.
100%. All right, let's get to the rundown really quick here. Dev, are you ready?
Ready.
You have a real rundown. This is like history right here. Ready? Boom. Batman Cape Crusader. We talked about this. Bruce Timm, everyone's back. Like the look. I'm not sure if he is doing the voice or not. I had heard that he was, but I could have been mistaken.
I feel like
if he's not, it's going to be weird.
I feel like I've heard friggin' 10 times that people are like, oh, this is Conroy's like last voice thing, and you know, last thing he ever did. And it's like there's a new thing that comes out, and it's like, holy shit, how much shit did this guy do before he passed away?
Do we know for sure that his family didn't give rights for AI?
I have no idea. You would know better than I would.
Okay, it's confirmed, by the way. He's not part of Cape Crusader. Just want to double check.
Okay.
Only person I know that's given up their likeness so far for AI is James Earl Jones. And obviously this will be a running thing that we'll see more. Ted 2 had a good season, was one of the most high watch shows. I believe it was the most watched show on Peacock. So it got renewed for a second season.
Good for them. I watched one episode. I realized why Ted is kind of annoying, but I also think it was well done.
Bear season 3, part of the, it's kind of apropos in a way that we're relaunching everything in June. I couldn't have asked for a better month to relaunch with a new domain dev because June is stupid. Between Acolyte and Thrones and The Boys, we'll only be doing 3 of those, but we don't have to do all of them all together except for 1 week. Bear's going to be a binge. Season 2 is a binge, and season 3 will be a binge. I'm not, as I mentioned, as a content creator, I do not like binges. I understand why people do like binges, but as a content provider, I prefer the weekly show because it's easier to go week to week and have a conversation about that. But season, and I also think the things just kind of get compiled unless you're a really, really good show, which The Bear was. So episodes like the Christmas episode and the episode with Cousin by himself. I can't remember. I always forget if it's called Spoons or Forks.
Spoons.
Spoons. Those episodes stand out, but a lot just kind of become one big melting pot together.
I think you're absolutely right. A show like this, we could probably agree that with Succession being over, this is the best show on television.
Yeah. Well,
Shogun's
left.
Well, no, but Shogun, I wouldn't consider it a show. I consider it I consider mini series and little limited series kind of like events.
Yeah.
The fact that we have 3 seasons of The Bear that it tells a story from the beginning to the end, I think is important. So that's why I call it a show.
There's been rumors this is the last season, by the way.
And that's fine if that's the case. But The Bear is the best show on TV. Shogun was the best event on TV. And that's how I'll classify it in my mind.
Yeah. Bob Iger said the MCU is going to slow down, having just 2-3 movies a year and 1 to 2 shows.
No shit. Like what they should have done from the beginning.
Weren't we doing this?
Yeah,
already?
I don't know. Actually, it should be 2 movies and a show a year.
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, we will end up with 2 shows this year, with Echo starting us off, and then Agatha will finish. And then we only have 1 Marvel movie this year with just Deadpool. And then next year we have 3 with Fantastic Four and Captain America and I believe Thunderbolts.
And people are not excited for Captain America now.
No, I am. Red Hulk, Harrison Ford, give it to me.
I know, but like the rumors is like the
rewrites have been massive. Like they had the Serpent Society as a big part of it. WWE superstar Seth Rollins was a big part of it, is like the head of the Serpent Society, and they cut all that out. They've been all over the script. So it's interesting too, Dev. Like, are some stuff going to be cut? Like, we know that shows like Ironheart and the Wonder Man have all been shot, but to some of them, they just go like, you know what? Let's just pull a WB and just take the tax break.
Depends on how important these characters might be to future plans. Like,
yeah,
for all we know, Ironheart was going to be the leader of whatever Avengers team there is, and now it's like, you know what? Maybe we can get Robert Downey Jr. back.
Yeah. So I think what Marvel is this year, I think this was the best thing that happened to Marvel this year because Echo was fun. It was fine. I didn't like the treatment of Kingpin at the end personally, but I think it was fine. Xmen 97 has brought a re-energized movement for Marvel right now, as we talked about at the topic here. It's up to Deadpool Wolverine to continue that momentum into D23 and then see if Agatha can take it out and kind of bring some more excitement before kind of a more normal onslaught of Marvel that we get next year.
Time will tell. I personally think that some of these franchises did not need to ever happen in the first place. Like, they were too busy trying to make everyone a hero or a villain with their own movie franchise that they lost track of the fact that people liked the more intimate teams and the more intimate movies.
Yeah, I don't know if we needed a Wonder Man show.
We don't need an Agatha show.
No. And then finally, Superman sewed off his suit. Did you get a chance to see it, Dev? What did you think?
Yeah, putting on the boots.
Put on the boots. I don't like the collar, personally.
I like when it goes up a little bit. I don't care either. What I'm like,
people are like have opinions. I'm like, whatever.
My enjoyment of Superman does not come down to his suit going to his neck or not. The suit looks pretty battle damaged though, which looks kind of cool. Like, it looks a little bit worn.
I like the logo. It's an older school logo.
There's just something about Henry. Like, this is going to sound kind of funny, so I'll try my best with phrasing, but there's something about Henry Cavill's body and his physicality in the role that I just appreciated so much.
Yeah.
I think you know what? Like, I kind of want Superman to be a giant buff guy. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. And that'll take us out. We will be back next week with the finale of X-Men 97. Maybe one of us will see Planet of the Apes. Maybe one of us will see the Fall Guy. Who knows?
Probably not.
Probably not. Thanks, everyone, for watching us here on the stream and on YouTube. And like I said, if you're interested, we're doing a quick 20-minute or so preview looking at Adam Owell on Jawa 31 on my personal Twitch stream. So you can go find that. Until next time, folks, for Devin Seal, I'm Joshua Arbuthnot. Cheers and enjoy the day, people.